Guerrero's payoff. Montigua smokes it to left center field. Hill is on the run. That baseball is beyond him and off the wall. Conon's around third base. He's coming for the plate. Montigua streaks for third. Relay throw gets through. Montigua pops up. He's going to try to score. Guerrero's throw gets away. Montigua's home. It's the old Little League home run. He started at the plate. He finishes at the plate. And it's 9-2 Lugnuts.
Welcome to the Media's Input. I am your host, James A. Paxson. For the first episode of the Media's Input, where I talk to broadcasters, TV reporters, meteorologists, newspaper writers, every single person in the media has some input to share, has some stories from the beginning of their career, has some stories of their worst moments and stories from their best moments. For the first pilot episode, I brought in someone who has given me so much advice in my career. I worked with him for the Central Michigan University women's basketball games when I was a junior and sat right to the right of him, and he taught me so much. I can't thank him enough. I'm so glad he's here. The Lansing Lugnuts play-by-play broadcaster, Mr. Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. How are we doing, sir?
James, I'm good. Considering, relatively, I'm good. Thank you.
Absolutely. What have you been doing since COVID hit? For the past 2 months, is there any hobbies you've picked up, or are you like me just watching a bunch of 60s and 70s baseball games?
I have picked up hobbies. I was given a bird feeder for my birthday. Now, not one bird has visited yet. However, I'm ready. Whenever any birds decide to drop by, I've got my book to identify which bird is which. I'm doing yoga each evening before going to bed. I'm approaching nearly 60 consecutive days of yoga.
Well, I mean, eventually the birds are going to come. I'm for sure on that. Probably when there's warmer weather and all that stuff. But I know for a fact the birds are going to come. How is COVID with a baby, per se? You have a son who is under a year old, I believe?
Yes. So the easiest way to remember how old he is he was born in late December. So with every passing month, he becomes a month older. It's May. He's going to be 5 months old on May the 23rd. So how is it with COVID and having a baby? The funny thing is having a baby actually prepared us for COVID-19. When he gets born, the doctors, everybody at the hospital came in and they said, nobody can see your baby who has not been vaccinated for the flu. You cannot touch this baby without washing your hands. You better wash your hands for 20 seconds and make sure that you have distance from everyone and no one can visit you. And it was stay at home. Do not go out. So for the first month of him being alive and really beyond that, and this is before coronavirus is shutting anything down, we were washing our hands at all opportunities and using hand sanitizer. We were talking to anybody who wanted to visit us saying, have you been vaccinated? What's your situation? We were telling people, stay away, give us distance. So COVID-19 pops up and we're going, oh, we've practiced for this.
You were all prepared before it even started.
Just wild.
So real quick, speaking on COVID, do you think we're going to see baseball this season? And if we do, what do you think it's going to look like?
I do think that we are going to see baseball this season. I think Major League Baseball is going to do every single thing they can do to jump through hoops, to negotiate whatever obstacles are in their way, to get some semblance of baseball on the field. What it's going to look like, to my mind, is going to be a game played on the backfields of spring training. So it's going to be a field and a pitcher and a batter and everything else. It's going to feel sterile. It's not going to have the same heart that you would have with 20, 30, 40, 50,000 fans. So these are going to be the players that we recognize and the uniforms that we recognize, but it's not going to have the same soul.
Well, I just hope we get it, because I really don't think it matters what it looks like, how safe we have to be, because the one thing I learned over this past weekend, because I watched some Bundesliga and I watched some NASCAR, and it's weird, but it's still sports. And I think in the long run, we still need sports.
Yeah, I'm an enormous football fan. Because I work in baseball, it's tamped down all of my emotions that I used to get as a fan, where I would shut off the game if I got too angry about how things were going. I'd get so into every single day, I would get amped up for first pitch. Well, broadcasting in baseball, I've got to stay medium. But football, it's not like I'm broadcasting in the NFL. So I got psyched for the NFL draft, and I watched every single round, and I'm looking into who's the best available and who it might be. So yes, I think this is going to be really good having it back. I also think because it's going to be such a strange shortened season, and because the atmosphere is going to be different, and the fields are going to be not the same home field advantage, all those different factors that are going to come into play are going to mean that the results should be highly unexpected, and that players might take off that we never see coming, and teams that we did not expect to see compete this year, they'll suddenly be really good because their players will catch fire.
Well, I hope you're right, and I hope to watch baseball in the next up-and-coming months. As someone who I'd say is a seasoned broadcaster, you've had a lot of experience. Talk to me about your beginning history and your past professional history, where you started out, what education you had, and some of the beginning experiences.
So I never broadcasted any game until I went to college. But as I was starting to look at colleges and try to decide why would I choose a college, what did I want to major in, I either wanted to be a writer, I wanted to write a lot of fiction and be a novelist, or I thought I was a theater person. I acted in every play in high school. Hey, maybe I could take this acting and turn it in toward sports. I listen to baseball games all the time, and football and basketball and hockey. Why wouldn't I try going to college specifically to try sports broadcasting? So I went on college visits with my parents, my family, and college after college we said, what do you have for sports broadcasting? And nobody had anything. There was only really Syracuse University on the East Coast. And one place I said, can I major in communications? And they said, you can major in communication, singular. And it turned out it was all about politics and diplomatic communication. So at that point, I was really feeling like I was hitting my head against the wall. Where could I find that actually had a sports broadcast program besides Syracuse? And I found Ithaca College. Now, you couldn't major in broadcasting, but what you could do when I went for my visit there, you could get involved right away, and it was student run, and they broadcasted everything, and they had 2 different stations. So it really felt like this was going to be a great place for me to get that opportunity. That's what I chose. Right from the very first week I got involved, and now I was doing regular sports updates. And I worked my way up to doing men's and women's basketball and doing football. And I got to call a Cornell University women's hockey game and baseball and softball. And by junior year, they had placed me in charge co-producing the weekly sports talk show. So after graduating with my degree at Ithaca College, by the way, while I was there, I first shadowed at WBAL in Baltimore. And then they asked me to come back, and I covered the Baltimore Orioles and covered local sporting events at WBAL during my winter and summer vacation, just collecting audio, asking really bad questions and interviews. And then I graduated May 2004 from Ithaca. I sent my tape out to tons of different baseball teams. I didn't get an interview from anyone. So I went back to the Washington, D.C. area, and I did play-by-play of theater, of musicals, back into the theater scene. It was audio description for people who are visually impaired. So I had headsets, and people would come in, and I would speak to anyone who is visually impaired or who simply wanted to grab headphones, and then I described what they could not see on the stage in front of them. I described dancers and a pianist and Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical. Well, I was looking for anything that I could use to try to get into baseball, and it was suggested to me, go to the baseball winter meetings in Anaheim, go to the job fair, get hired there. So in December of 2004, I went to Anaheim. I got a number of different interviews, and from there, I was hired to work for the Brockton Rocks, independent team in Massachusetts. And from the Brockton Rocks in 2005 to the Montgomery Biscuits, AA Southern League, I was their intern for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays organization. In 2006, 2007, 2008, I got my first #1 job with the Windy City Thunderbolts. And then in 2009, I became the #1 voice of the Lansing Lugnuts.
That's so cool how you started doing play-by-play for theater. Do you remember, what was your best play that you did? What was the best performance that you thought you just nailed? Was it Jesus Christ Superstar?
Christ Superstar.
Yeah.
It took me a little while because the first show that I did, the actors complained that I was talking too loud.
So what, they could hear you while they were performing?
That's something that happens with baseball too. If for a baseball game, it's a very sparse crowd. They can hear my broadcast. The pitcher's charting. Had the center fielder tell me one day that he could hear me broadcasting the game, and you never want that. You don't want to distract the guys. But yes, I was calling Jesus Christ Superstar, and the actors were like, hey, you got to keep it down. We're trying to put on a show here.
I love that. And honestly, I could just see one moment where the pitcher's just sitting there looking at pitches, and you go, he usually throws a slider here, and the batter hears you or something.
Well, the worst thing is, you know how we are as broadcasters. We're talking about streaks.
Yes.
There comes this batter. He's won for his last 25. I mean,
I can't say you have to quiet down, though. I mean, you don't really know what to do.
You need to just call the game, and hopefully the work that you've put in, it allows you to gain trust, because all we're looking for from anybody who listens to us, whatever it is that we do, the people who employ us, we just want trust. We want people to trust what we say, how we're describing the game, and the stories that we're telling them.
Throughout your career, who do you think has helped you the most? Who's the one person you can point to and say, without them, I would not be where I am today?
I think that Jerry Coleman, when I got that position for shadowing, and then he gave me the opportunity in Baltimore at WBAL, it was really Jerry to start. And then from there, it was Dave Raymond in Brockton, Massachusetts, and then Jim Tocco in Montgomery, Alabama. And then Pat Day was the general manager after Steve Tasler in Windy City. Pat Day in Lansing, Michigan, gave me the opportunity with the Lansing Lugnuts. I don't think I could give any one of them more credit than anybody else.
What do you think was one of the worst moments of your career that you can think of? Was it something that was big enough for you to go, you know what, I got to get out of this career? It was just not working out.
I mean, this sounds silly to say. One of my very first games where I'm broadcasting, and you just realize there's no net. And baseball goes a lot quicker than you ever expect it to go. The very start, when you just begin broadcasting and you're thinking, all right, I can tell stories, I've got some preparation prepared, whatever it might be, I've got my scorecard, and then the game just takes off on you. And if the batter starts swinging on first pitches, so you've got weirdness taking place right in front of you, and now you can't figure out which runner is which, and guys are scoring. So it was those initial couple of days doing play-by-play. In Brockton, I had the opportunity, and then in Montgomery, where I just had to shake it off and keep on coming back. In Brockton and Montgomery, Alabama, I would seriously say the ability to continue coming right back to the microphone and trying to put the embarrassment over what I felt was a very poor broadcast behind me was so important. Having a short memory is a key trait for a broadcaster.
So I've worked with you while doing women's basketball for Central Michigan University, and I've listened to you do baseball for the Lansing Lugnuts. In your opinion, what are the major differences between doing basketball and baseball, and which one do you think you're better at personally?
I think I'm better at baseball for the specific reason that baseball, I get 140 games in a year, and basketball, I don't. So let's say the CMU Chippewas go out there, they play, if they get 33, 34, 35 games in a season, it's a whale of a season. I'm getting Wednesday and Saturday games, 2 games a week. In baseball, I'm getting Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So in baseball, the chief challenge, besides another challenge that I'm going to get to shortly, baseball, the challenge is don't get tired. Basketball, football being 1 game a week, you're preparing, you're working. Same thing as the team. The team is spending all the time preparing for that game. It all ramps up to it, and then you try to do your very best for it, and then you come down from it, you get some time to recover and listen back to yourself and reload for the next game. Baseball doesn't allow you that recovery time. So I think simply because I've called so much fewer basketball games that I'm better with baseball. However, I believe that baseball is tougher in terms of in basketball. If you can figure out the patter of the play-by-play, of the description, of really describing how that ball's moving around the court and bringing to life what you see, calling out each person's name, not using too many words. Once you have that all mastered, you can be a really good basketball broadcaster and slip in little notes about the players, go to practice, get some wisdom. It's really good. The shot clock moves, the game moves. So there's something about basketball that once you understand the teams, once you understand the language, you've got it. Baseball, you can be really good at calling the plays. You can be really good at understanding the teams. And then things happen. A batter fouls off a pitch 10 times in a row. A team scores 9 runs in the first inning, and you just realize, oh my gosh, it's now 9-0. It is 101 degrees, and I'm going to be here for the next 3 hours, and nothing's going to happen. And maybe something might happen, but each half inning is so divided. In basketball, it's that sprint, and you come out of timeout, and you're ready, and your heart is pumping. In baseball, your heart can't be pumping in the second inning. You can't call a home run in the second like it's a home run in the ninth. You've got to work up to it. And you could do the same thing in basketball. Basketball, a layup or a three-pointer in the first quarter or in the first half is not the same as one at the end of the game, but it really is, how do you ramp up? How do you bring in stories? And how do you entertain the listener while also not making it all about yourself? If I'm listening to a baseball broadcaster, the first thing I want to know is what's going on in the game. All right, tell me something about the players. Tell me something about the game. And then if nothing's happening, do something for me. Make me laugh. Bring something else to the table. And I really don't think that basketball broadcasters are so challenged to bring something else to the table, because the game should really take care of itself.
So going through that process, of course, practice and experience helps you the most, but what's the one thing that's helped you become a great storyteller in the in-game experience?
I think the understanding of the proper way to tell a story is to picture yourself on the telephone with somebody you would want to tell the story to. The idea of find your audience. So James, let's say you've got a really good friend and you just discovered something awesome about this player in this game. How would you tell him that story? In a sense, it's wingmanning at the bar. How do you properly wingman for someone? So that's what you need to figure out, that realization that all I'm doing is just wingmanning for this player to you, my listener. That simplified everything. Hey, this brings up this player, by the way, loves to bodybuild. And in fact, a couple of years ago, he was 50 pounds overweight, and he discovered, and off you go. And you listening, you're like, that's pretty cool. And you can do the same thing with basketball. Someone steps to the free throw line. Someone just comes into the game, and you say, by the way, the 6th of 6 siblings, but the only one whose first letter of their first name doesn't start with an R. Anyway, you go, that's wild. And off you go. All you're doing is wingmanning that introduction.
So one player who would be very easy to wingman, who is a Toronto Blue Jay right now, is Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm sure he would be incredibly easy to wingman at the end of the day. I want to know what you think his long-term impact to the game of baseball will be, because clearly he looks like he's going to be an amazing player. He looks like he's going to be a great batter. But what do you think long-term will this player be? Do you think he'll end up being a top player of the game forever? Do you think he can help a team go to the World Series? What's your take as someone who has a team in the Toronto Blue Jays system can think Vlad Guerrero Jr. can do?
I think, James, that he can be Miguel Cabrera or Manny Ramirez. I think he could be that, not in shape necessarily, out of shape, sure, he's not going to be 0% body fat, but he is that right-handed hitting prodigy who crushes everything and has a killer batting eye. So his eye, combined with the ability to swing as hard as he does and hit the ball as hard as he does, he's so young. He's so young. And if he keeps on getting better the way that I've seen him get better since I first saw him at 17 years old, what an impact hitter he is. Yes, in the middle of a lineup, he can help that team make the World Series.
Who are some other Toronto Blue Jays players in the future? So someone who's in single A, double A, or triple A, who you want people to be on the lookout for, who you've seen and gone, hey, he's going to make a difference.
It's a fascinating question because every year new guys get a chance to put themselves on the map. So let me tell you about Alejandro Kirk and Gabriel Moreno. Both of them are catchers. Last year, we might not have expected to see Moreno. There's such great depth of catching in the Blue Jays organization. We had Alejandro Kirk to begin the year. Alejandro Kirk is 5'9", 260 pounds. Probably not 5'9", maybe a little shorter. Helps you understand his body shape. He gets signed by the Blue Jays after he hits for the Triple Crown. I'm a scout that signed him first worked for the Tampa Bay Rays, tried to convince the Rays to sign him. Rays took a look at this guy, and they said, nah, I don't think so. Joined the Blue Jays, signed him. All right, he's now a Blue Jay. Breaks his hand, slammed in the car door, and so much goes his first professional season, never gets out of the blocks. Very next year, first game, pitcher hits him with a pitch in the same hand, ends his year. So we don't know too much about him. Going into 2018, well, Wander Franco is the best hitter, the best player in the Appalachian League. Alejandro Kirk is the second best player. And then he joins the Lugnuts last year, 20-year-old catcher out of Tijuana. And all he does is walk 10 more times than he strikes out and hits the ball out of sight. Now, he got promoted because Riley Adams with Dunedin got promoted up, and so they moved him up. But Kirk, to my mind, looks like a major league impact catcher. And in spring training for the Blue Jays, this guy who'd never played above A advanced had the best at-bats of anyone who was not a Toronto Blue Jays regular. He was slated to be in Double-A this coming year. He is sensational. And then there's Gabriel Moreno, because when Kirk was promoted, they sent us Moreno, the soccer midfielder, again a catcher, again not taller than 6 feet, but slender and athletic. Very first at-bat, crushed a home run to left field, later tripled in that game, singled in that game. He is quick. His wrists are extraordinary. He was hitting the ball 20, 30, 40 feet farther than other guys on the team who are much bigger than him. I think Kirk and Moreno, both of them Lugnuts catchers in 2019, will both make the major leagues.
So we have a couple catchers that we need to look out for in the upcoming years. It's going to be interesting watching 5'9", 260 in Major League Baseball. I'm curious, if he'll ever steal a base, which probably not, but.
His second game with the Lugnuts, he stole home.
What?
Did not. His very first hit in Lansing was an infield single.
An infield single. I can't wait to see this guy in the major leagues. One topic I wanted to talk to you about, because you're a very passionate baseball broadcaster. You know the game very well. You've written a book about baseball. What about the Houston Astros? I understand that's not a good phrasing question, but what about them? Because it's almost crazy that they've admitted to cheating. They did cheat. They won a World Series. And at the end of the day, it looks like nothing happened at the end of the day. Quite frankly, that money to an owner is $20 for me and you. And when I found out the news that if this season just doesn't happen, their suspensions are good. It's fine. We didn't play a game, but it still counts as the season. I went, what is going on? Because they clearly did something wrong, but they're never going to get punished. So I'd love to know your take on the Houston Astros. Did they get let off easily? Do you think fans will look at them differently? Do you think they'll ever get the punishment they deserve?
I do think that fans will boo them wherever fans see them. I do think that they were let off easily. That said, what is the harshest punishment that you can think of that has been levied against a major sports team, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, NFL?
The harshest punishment.
Here's the big thing. Harsh punishments are levied against college programs. Death penalties are handed down.
Right, yes.
You can do that in college because you don't worry that there aren't other colleges to step up and take their spot. Major League Baseball, if they gave a death penalty to the Houston Astros, you're destroying a market for baseball out of the 30 that you got. You as a major sports league, you cannot kill a market. You cannot say you're ineligible for the World Series next year, because what if that means that Houston never draws any fans to their ballpark? And You lose a ton of people buying baseball merch. And suddenly Houston is destroyed and the surrounding areas as a baseball market. You really have to be careful about what you do to all of those Astros baseball fans. So yeah, I think Major League Baseball did not give them the harshest of punishments. I think, quite frankly, Major League Baseball really, really, really would like for everybody to forget about it and just move on with our lives.
It looks like Major League Baseball is just sweeping it completely under the rug. But unfortunately, in my opinion, I think there's more teams doing this. Do you agree with that or no?
I do. Because let's say you're an Astros position player. You know that the Astros are doing this. You are, reaping the benefits from this. Well, players move about all the time. So you move to a new team. Your new team doesn't do this. You're going, hitting is a lot harder now. So you say, guys, we got to start doing this. I got an idea, whatever it might be. And then you're coming up with different new ways that you could try it. Scouts, guys who talk within the game, whoever it might be. There's so much conversation because everyone has friends in different orgs. There's so much of that player movement of releases and waivers and trades and whoever it might be. Once an idea gets out there, it moves and it spreads and a team puts this twist on it. That team puts that twist on it. So yeah, this was not a one team or, including the Boston Red Sox, a two-team thing.
I just think it's something that other teams have already done, and I just don't see it as teams are going to stop doing it. So I think in the future you're going to hear more and more teams doing this because the punishment wasn't anything, basically.
All right, you ready for my wild idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Football. You've got defensive, offensive coordinators. The quarterback has an earpiece. The middle linebacker has an earpiece, and you can see the guy sitting above with their binoculars, or the guy on the sideline who's calling in the next play, and that way the offense has its play and the defense has its play. I think the Astros, Red Sox, the whole cheating scandal is the equivalent of that play getting called in the huddle, and then the defense getting radioed, hey, they're going to run a sweep to the right side. That's all it is. It was radioed to the batter, hey, fastball. So I want you to imagine, what if you gave the pitcher and catcher, and really gave it to everybody on the defense, gave everybody an earpiece, gave the pitching coach a headset, and then you called the play, and by the play I mean the pitch, and the pitching coach is in the dugout going, curve, change up, and that's it. No signals from the catcher, nobody, everything is instantaneous. The shortstop, the second baseman, everybody know what is there to intercept.
I love it because it would completely get the intercepting calls out of the way. And the bad guessing of, I know this call, and it's the completely wrong call, that wouldn't happen anymore either. So I'm all on board with this.
Like hire a pitch coordinator, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the dude who calls the pitches.
So to end here, you have a lot of great advice. And I say that as someone who, quite frankly, I got to be farther in my career because I got to be to the right of you during those games. What advice would you give to young broadcasters who are starting out right now?
Okay. A couple of different things. The first thing is you have to work on your voice. I learned this way too late. So I'm working. You have to, whether it's go to YouTube videos, whether it's find a vocal coach in your area, and that could be someone who teaches singing, theater, whatever it might be. Your voice is so important because you can't send your interview tape to an employer, have them turn on 2 seconds, just click on it on the computer, go, can't hire this person, and off you go. So whatever you do, you need to tap into your diaphragm and really work on vocal control, how you sound when you're excited, how you sound all the time. That's number one. Number two is you have to know the game. So I wrote the book of the Baseball Thesaurus and also the Football Thesaurus on how we talk the game because you get exposed in a hurry if you don't know what you're talking about. If you don't understand why this batter would lay down a bunt here or why would they intentionally walk him or any of that strategy in football, basketball. If you don't understand what a full court press is, you don't understand what an alley-oop is or whatever that jargon might be, learn to talk the game. So if you do those things, if you learn how to talk and you learn what you're talking about, then just keep doing it, do it, and you'll be on your way.
Thank you very much for this, Jesse. I'm so happy that you got to be my first episode. And the big one is know the game. I agree with you on the voice, but I'm going to be a nasally, nerdy kid no matter how I try. But it's know the game. It's literally practice, research it the best you can, and I think you'll be able to be a better broadcaster the more you know what you're talking about. Because if I went and tried to broadcast plays like you did, people would stop coming because I have never really been into theater. So I definitely agree with you have to know the game.
James, I'll tell you, the question of why, I've had broadcast partners join me in the Alaska question. And if you are calling a game for a team, if you're a member of the media, you can ask the players or the coaches why, and then bring that into your very next broadcast, and it sounds so good. Last game, when this player got thrown out at third base, I asked him why. Here's what he saw. Last game, when this play was drawn up, whatever it might be, that talking to the coaches and the players, just saying, why did this happen? That helps give you so much insight.
Ask why. I love it, Jesse. I will definitely do it in my future, and I hope anyone looking for advice would do it in their future too. Thank you for doing this again, Jesse. I hope COVID goes as fast as possible, and I hope birds finally visit, because it would be a shame if you keep putting bird feeder out there and they just don't show up.
It's a great running gag. James, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Jesse. On the next episode of the Media's Input, we have Mr. Pat Johnston, my podcast and partner over at WSUW 100.5 in Saginaw. Thank you for listening, and check out the YouTube channel, James A. Paxton.